Have you ever loved someone so deeply, only to realize there's no room for you in their life? You give, you wait, you hope, yet you're always on the outside. This is not just heartbreak. This is the silent weight of unrequited love. And today, we're going to unpack why it hurts so much, and how you can finally let go. It's a strange kind of heartbreak when you realize you're in someone's life, but never truly in their heart. You show up with love, you give your best, and yet you feel like you're standing outside a locked door. That's the quiet ache of unrequited love. It's not about big fights or dramatic endings, it's about the invisible weight of being overlooked day after day. This emotional pain creeps in slowly, until you start to wonder if maybe you're asking for too much, when in truth, you're simply asking to be chosen. When love hurts this way, it doesn't always look obvious from the outside. Friends might see you smiling next to him, but inside, you know the distance. You feel the cold spaces where warmth should be. It's like giving everything you have into a well that never fills. And the more you pour, the more empty you become. That slow erosion of your self-worth leaves scars nobody else can see. It's the kind of wound that keeps you awake at night, questioning your value. Healthy love, by contrast, feels safe. It allows space for both people to exist fully, without competition, without begging for attention. But when you're in a dynamic that drains you, love hurts in ways that feel almost unbearable. You're present, you're available, and yet somehow you're invisible. The imbalance is exhausting. And instead of lifting you higher, it pulls you into quiet despair, the kind you can't explain easily to others. The cruel part of this kind of relationship is the silence. It's not about rejection in words, it's about rejection in absence. The unanswered texts, the canceled plans, the subtle ways you realize you don't matter as much as you wish you did. Every small disappointment adds weight to the emotional pain. You end up carrying bags of invisible rejection, heavy enough to break your spirit. That's when you begin confusing neglect with love, telling yourself this is normal, when deep down, you know it's not. What makes this harder is how much hope you carry. Hope that one day he'll see you differently, hope that if you just hold on long enough, he'll finally open the door. But the longer you stay in this cycle, the more you forget what real love even feels like. Your sense of self-worth fades, and the mirror starts showing you someone who no longer recognizes her own light. That's the cost of loving where there's no space. It reshapes how you see yourself. It also forces you to play roles that don't belong to you. You become the chaser, the pleaser, the one who bends until she breaks. Instead of standing tall in love, you're constantly shrinking, trying to fit into corners that were never meant for you. And in the process, you forget that love is supposed to expand you, not confine you. This isn't just disappointment, it's a distortion of love that hurts far more than being alone ever could. And maybe that's the hardest truth of all. Love shouldn't require you to disappear just to make room for someone else. If you're always on the outside, always waiting, always adjusting, then you're not in love, you're in emotional pain disguised as devotion. The question is, why do we end up here so often? Why do we choose people who have no space for us, yet cling to them like they're the only option? So many women wonder why they keep ending up in the same painful story, loving men who don't have room for them. The truth is, these patterns don't come out of nowhere. They're often shaped long before we even start dating. If you grew up craving attention that never came, or felt like love had to be earned, it makes sense that as an adult you chase the same dynamic. What feels familiar often feels safe, even if it's hurting you. That's how emotional neglect in childhood echoes into the present. When a little girl learns that love is inconsistent, she grows up believing she has to work for it. Maybe your parents were distracted, unavailable, or only gave affection when you achieved something. That kind of conditional love plants a seed of self-doubt that never really goes away. It whispers, "You're not enough as you are." So later, when you meet someone who withholds love, that voice inside feels strangely at home. You think, if I prove myself, maybe this time I'll finally be enough. This is where anxious attachment often takes root. You start clinging harder when someone pulls away, terrified that distance means abandonment. It's not that you want to be needy, it's that your nervous system has been trained to believe love is always slipping away. On the other side, avoidant partners are drawn into this dance because they also carry wounds. They keep their distance, you chase harder, and the cycle repeats. Two unhealed patterns colliding, each confirming the other's deepest fears. Childhood trauma doesn't always look dramatic, it can be subtle. A parent who didn't listen. A family where emotions weren't safe to express. A household where affection felt scarce. Those small cracks in your foundation can lead you, years later, to feel most alive with partners who recreate the same struggle. It's not because you enjoy the pain, but because your mind is wired to repeat what's familiar. That's why love hurts in ways that don't make sense to others. It's an old wound playing out in a new story. This search for validation becomes like a shadow that follows you everywhere. You might not even realize how much of your worth is tied to being chosen. But deep down, every unanswered call, every distant silence, feels like proof of your fears. Maybe I'm not lovable enough. That's the heavy weight of unresolved trauma. It turns someone else's behavior into a mirror of your old pain, convincing you that the problem is you, when it never was. And the tricky part is, on the surface, it feels like passion. The highs and lows, the chase, the intensity, it feels exciting compared to calm, steady love. But that excitement is just anxiety disguised as chemistry. It's your nervous system recognizing chaos as home. That's why emotionally stable partners can feel boring at first, while the unavailable ones feel irresistible. Your brain confuses peace with emptiness and drama with love. So, the real question becomes, how do you break free from patterns that have been written into your story since childhood? How do you learn to stop chasing people who can't love you the way you need, and instead open space for the kind of love that heals? There's a moment in every one-sided relationship when you realize you're always the one reaching out first. You plan the dates, you send the good morning texts, you check in when he goes quiet. At first, you tell yourself it's just your way of loving, but deep down you notice the imbalance. Love shouldn't feel like a constant performance. When you're pouring all your energy into keeping the connection alive, love hurts in a way that leaves you drained instead of fulfilled. This cycle usually begins with hope. You think, if I give more, maybe he'll see how much I care. So you stay longer, try harder, and stretch yourself thinner. But the more you give, the less you seem to receive. Instead of appreciation, you're met with distance. And every time he pulls away, you double your efforts, convinced that this is how you'll finally win his heart. It feels like running on a treadmill. You're exhausted, but never moving forward. This is where codependency quietly takes root. You start defining your worth by how much you can offer. You believe that if you stop giving, the relationship will fall apart, so you keep carrying the weight alone. It's like trying to row a boat with just one paddle. You're working endlessly, but you keep going in circles. That's the trap of toxic relationships. They keep you locked in cycles that drain your self-worth and make you question your own value. Low self-esteem feeds this loop even more. When you don't believe you're enough on your own, you cling tighter to the little bits of affection you receive. A short text, a rare compliment, or an occasional show of attention feels like gold, even though it's the bare minimum. You convince yourself that crumbs are better than nothing, not realizing that you deserve the whole loaf. This mindset doesn't just hurt, it keeps you from even imagining what real love should look like. The false hope is what ties it all together. You keep waiting for the day he wakes up and sees you differently, like in some sudden movie moment where everything changes. But real life isn't a script, and holding on to that fantasy keeps you stuck in emotional pain. Every time he gives you just enough to keep you there, the cycle resets, and you start again, giving too much, receiving too little, and believing that maybe this time will be different. It's heartbreaking because you're not weak, you're simply loyal to a fault. You've been taught to fight for love, to not give up easily. But when the fight is one-sided, it's not really love, it's survival mode disguised as devotion. And the longer you stay in this cycle, the harder it becomes to even imagine letting go. You start believing this is just what love feels like, when in truth, it's a pattern that has nothing to do with healthy connection. The hardest part is admitting that this cycle won't break itself. It takes a moment of clarity to see that no matter how much you give, you can't make someone want to stay. Love isn't something you can earn through effort, it's a choice that has to come freely. And once you start to see that clearly, you begin to ask yourself, how do I know when it's time to stop fighting for love that only leaves me empty? There comes a moment when you can no longer ignore the truth, love shouldn't hurt this much. You start noticing patterns that never felt right, the constant waiting, the invisible walls, the silent doubts gnawing at your heart. Emotional pain shouldn't be the main ingredient in a relationship. Yet, when you've been chasing someone who has no space for you, it often takes a long time to admit it. That realization can feel like standing on the edge of a cliff, unsure whether to jump or stay. Recognizing the signs is tricky because love blinds us. You tell yourself, he's just busy, he's just stressed, things will get better. But over time, those excuses start to feel thin, like paper in the wind. The emotional neglect becomes clearer with each missed gesture, each moment you're left wanting. The breaking point isn't dramatic, it's quiet, a steady accumulation of knowing in your gut that this is not what love should feel like. You can feel it in your bones, even if your heart hesitates. Letting go doesn't mean failure. It doesn't mean you didn't love enough or try hard enough. Emotional maturity is understanding that love is a choice, not a test of endurance. It's about seeing clearly and deciding that your energy belongs to someone who truly makes space for you. This shift in perspective is liberating but also scary, because it challenges everything you thought love required of you. It forces you to confront your fears of loneliness and your attachments to familiar pain. Part of emotional healing is separating your worth from someone else's availability. You start to understand that being chosen is not about begging or proving your value. Love is supposed to be reciprocal, and when it isn't, it's a reflection of the other person, not your inadequacy. This awareness gives you a new lens through which to see relationships, one that prioritizes respect, attention, and care as essentials rather than perks. It's common to feel guilt during this process. You may question whether you're overreacting, or wonder if you should keep trying. But slowly, you begin to recognize that staying in a relationship that consistently hurts you doesn't demonstrate loyalty, it prolongs your pain. The breaking point is the moment you accept that continuing won't change someone else's willingness to give. And acceptance is the first step toward freedom. Understanding that love isn't about convincing someone to see you opens a new door. You start to see that no matter how much effort you put in, it won't fill a heart that isn't ready. And that realization, while painful, is also empowering. It's a call to step back, protect your heart, and make space for connections where love is given freely and fully. It's learning that boundaries are not walls, they're invitations for respect and understanding. And once you reach this awareness, the mind starts to shift. You begin imagining relationships where you're valued without chasing, where love doesn't feel like work, and where your self-worth isn't tied to someone else's attention. That shift prepares you for the next step, choosing yourself and creating space for love that truly honors you. Choosing yourself is the first step toward breaking free from patterns that no longer serve you. It's about realizing that your love is valuable, and it deserves to be met with the same energy you give. You start saying no to situations that drain you, and yes to practices that rebuild your self-worth. This doesn't happen overnight, but every small decision to honor yourself creates a foundation for real, reciprocal love. It's a quiet revolution in your heart, one that gradually reshapes your expectations and boundaries. The shift from chasing to allowing is powerful. Instead of bending over backward for someone who doesn't see you, you focus on your own growth, your own happiness. Emotional validation starts within, you no longer depend on someone else's approval to feel whole. You begin to notice how it feels to live without constant anxiety over someone's attention, and it's freeing. Suddenly, waiting for love doesn't feel like suffering, it feels like preparation for something better. Rebuilding self-worth takes consistent effort. You might journal, meditate, or set new boundaries with people who drain your energy. You learn to speak up for yourself and trust your feelings. Every time you choose to protect your heart, you strengthen the part of you that knows what you truly deserve. And with every small act of self-respect, you're quietly telling the universe, I am worth real love, and I will no longer settle for less. Opening your heart again can be intimidating, but this time, it's different. You're no longer seeking someone to fill a void, you're inviting a partner into a life that's already full. You approach relationships with clarity and confidence, recognizing the importance of mutual respect, emotional availability, and kindness. This is the space where love feels safe, nourishing, and expansive, rather than restrictive or painful. The beauty of this process is in the freedom it brings. You no longer feel trapped by old patterns or by someone else's inconsistency. You're free to explore connections that honor your needs, and in doing so, you attract people who are ready and willing to meet you fully. It's a profound shift from desperation to discernment, from fear to empowerment, and from longing to fulfillment. Emotional healing becomes an ongoing journey rather than a destination. You continue to practice self-love, set boundaries, and validate your own emotions daily. This inner work not only protects your heart but also allows you to enter relationships with a clear mind and an open heart. Love starts to feel effortless because you're no longer compromising your essence for someone else's acceptance. Finally, choosing yourself teaches a vital lesson. Love is not about fixing someone else or hoping they change. Real love happens when two whole people come together voluntarily, with space for each other and for themselves. By prioritizing your own growth, your own happiness, and your own worth, you create a life where love is abundant, safe, and reciprocal. And that's the love you've always deserved. Real love doesn't happen where there's no space for you. It begins when you choose yourself first. If this message spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos on love, healing, and emotional growth.